Hi, and welcome back to the HSP Connection with me, Robbie Lee.
And me, Philippa Robinson. This is where we share our stories, insights, and strategies to help fellow highly sensitive people navigate their own path to living a fulfilling and meaningful life.
We're on a mission to reclaim the word sensitive and help the world see the strength in sensitivity. So, Philippa, what are we talking about today, my friend?
I'm trying not to say the word well. We are going to talk. We are going to talk about. I suppose we'll probably call this wisdom, but what I want to talk about is the joy of having wise women in my life. That's why I want to talk about this subject. And also, I was introduced to a practice by a wonderful woman, and she introduced me to the practice of having this internal sort of way of connecting with a group of wise women to help me feel grounded, and it felt really awesome. So
Yes.
that is really why I wanted to talk about wisdom, but in particular wise women.
Oh, well, love the topic of wise women. Love the idea of the internal connection there. Ooh, is that something you're going to share with us? Is how that practice?
Well, I was going to say I'd love to be able to share that practice with you, but I'm not sure actually that's my zone of genius. But I would like to explain it a bit more, maybe. And yeah, maybe one day, maybe if I'd thought, perhaps I could have thought about it a little bit more before we came to record this episode. But that's definitely not my zone of genius, so I wouldn't want to ruin it. But it is really. And sorry to any men that are tuning in. I'm sure there's lots of wise men as well, but obviously Robbie and I are here. We're two women. We are obviously very wise.
I mean, obviously.
Obviously. And I also think it ties in with a couple of other subjects that I've been thinking about. One being age, and do you have to be a bit older to be wise? And maybe we can talk about that. And I actually don't think that's necessarily the answer. I don't think you do have to be older to be wise, but and also friendships. And
yeah,
we're not all going to be friends with wise people all the time, but how amazing it is when you can find wise friends. So yeah, I just felt that it was a good topic to explore. And obviously, Robbie, I think you are one of my wise women in my group of wise women, and you're my friend, and it's amazing to have you in my life as somebody who is wise, and to just basically bounce things around with and be there when I need a safe pair of ears to listen to what I've got to say.
I mean, that makes my heart so happy. I'm a little melty over here. Thank you. And you are absolutely in my wise woman group, clan. I don't know what the word is. Circle. You're one of my wise women.
Thank you.
And it feels lovely for all the reasons you said, like to have someone, a safe person that you can trust and say the things that are going on and bounce ideas off and share creatively. And something you said off camera before, anyway, a different day, is you said there's something about the reflection, like you can see, one of the great things about having these wise women in your life is you can see parts of yourself reflected. And I think that's such a powerful sentiment. I'd love for you to talk more about it.
Yeah, I'm glad you've brought that up. I did say that. I think I mentioned that the other week, and like off mic. And I think I heard that. I heard somebody talking. I think they were talking about community actually, and they were talking about being in community with wonderful people. And, you know, as human beings, we do reflect the people who we are with. So whether we're wise or not, you know, you are going to have reflected back to you by the people around you, kind of who you are. And I love you know, and I truly believe that. So if somebody is, I don't know, somebody I'm with is behaving, let's call it badly, perhaps not a great choice of word, but badly towards me, that is definitely going to have some reflection on how I'm feeling, either towards them or about, usually about myself, to be fair. But there is definitely some reflecting going on. And as highly sensitive people, we have more mirror neurons in our brain than non-highly sensitive people do. So we, as the highly sensitive people, will definitely be reflecting back to the people who we are with what we are seeing in them. And if we are, like when I'm with you, you know, we're both highly sensitive. So we absolutely are reflecting back what we are seeing, because we, without thinking about it, we're mirroring what we're experiencing in each other. But I just love the idea that being in community is really important. And I think post everything we've been through with the pandemic in the world, I think a lot of us are feeling the loss of community in either communities we had before that we haven't managed to replace because for whatever reason that community is not there anymore, or I know that this certainly happened to me, is that I got very used to being inside on my own a lot. And I actually had to make an effort to get myself back out again, because I was getting very used to being on my own and realized I was missing being with other people. So I needed to find that community more. And but when I heard this person on this podcast talk about, she was talking about women, but it can be anybody, being in community and being with people, being in a wonderful group of wise women who are all just wonderful in their own right in very different ways. What you're actually witnessing is your own wisdom and your own greatness, if I may call it that, being reflected back to you. And I was like, oh, wow, that's just boom.
Yeah. It's so powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And especially as women, the messages we get about aging, and I know wisdom and age don't necessarily connect, but
yeah,
you and I are both in our 50s. And, you know, a lot of the people I would consider wise women are that age and older.
Yeah, me too.
And how lovely to have such a positive messaging about, you know, what we're bringing to each other and to ourselves and to the world. We do have a lot to offer past, you know, in middle age, past middle age. Like, women aren't just about youth and childbirth, which is, you know, the messages we've gotten in the main society for a long time. There's so much more to us and so much we still have to offer.
Oh gosh, absolutely. And this is another of our favorite topics, really, systems and structures, and how you know, and you're right. I think it's perfectly possible to be, I mean, to be wise without being older. I mean, how many people do we know who we say, oh, you know, they're an old soul, or they've been here before, or they've got an old head on their shoulders. So there are people, I think, who are naturally more inclined to be like that. But even those people gain more wisdom because as they age, because you have more life experience, you've met more people, you've been more places, you've done more things, you have more spheres of reference, you know, to be able to put what you know into context. So
absolutely,
wisdom definitely does increase with age, I think. And it's just brilliant. I mean, that is one of the most brilliant things about being a woman in her 50s. I think you've touched there on one of the other things, is that society kind of tells us that we're, or has told us, certainly to the previous generations, that we're kind of all a bit done by now. And what is the point of us apart from waiting for grandchildren and looking after the next generation? Well, I have got lots of friends in my 50s. I'm in my 50s, you're in your 50s, and I'm definitely not sitting back waiting for grandchildren. No, thank you.
No.
You know, I'm just on the next phase of my life now.
Yeah.
And boy, it's wonderful.
It is.
You know, we can carry on learning. And, you know, we were talking before we came on here about new tech that we're learning about to use in our businesses. And that is just, I like learning those new things. And there is so much more to learn. I mean, I've only started my business in my 50s, and, you know, gosh, it's so much harder than I realized it was going to be. And it's also brilliant.
Yeah.
So, you know, I now have that other frame of reference, I suppose, that I've never had that before. I was always employed, or I was self-employed for quite a long time, actually. But still, I was doing a job in the same place all the time and going there, and it was very steady and the same. And to move from there to the place that I'm in now, which is much more, what's the word? I was going to say unstable. That's not quite the word I was looking for, but that isn't quite so. I don't always know what's going to happen. Let's put it that way. Every day is a different day, and I'm never quite sure what's going to happen. And I actually find it quite exciting, but I am a high sensation seeker, so I suppose it's not a total surprise. What about you?
Well, you know, as you were talking, I was thinking about, I think one of the reasons why we associate wisdom with age is there comes a point for many of us where what society has been telling us should be our box, where we're like, yeah, no, that's not. There's a lot more to us than that. And there's something really freeing about kind of getting out of that box. And it's like, for me, it then gave me access to all this energy to really explore who I am and connect and own the wisdom, connect to and own the wisdom that I have, and connect to other wise women and share that. Like, it has been a profound experience for me. Now, I will say most of my connections currently are over Zoom. Like, you and I don't even live in the same country, you know? But as I was reflecting, I've been really lucky. Like, I've had wise women in my life they took different forms, but for most of my life, there was a circle of women. And it's just, I started thinking, like, it's been really interesting. I think the pandemic was definitely at play for why currently it's not an in-person thing as much of it as an online thing for me right now. We moved, the pandemic, I got sick. So all these things that kept me, well, I was behaving differently in the world outside of my home. So it really has me thinking about connecting. And I'm so grateful because even though I don't have a lot of people, I'm not going to say none because that's not true. I don't have a lot of people I could call up in person and say, let's go do this as a wise woman, part of my circle. I have access to a lot of wise women that I could go, let's hop on Zoom and connect. And I do that a lot. And it's so enriching. Yeah, I don't know. I'm grateful for technology. There is also something about in person. So I'm mulling with that, but I'm so grateful for technology.
Oh yeah, gosh, me too. And even though I needed to get out of the house, what I actually did was get out of the house and go and work in an office 2 days a week, and that gives me enough peopling. Thanks very much to come back and I make a lot of my connections with, I'm not saying I don't work in an office with wise people. I'm not saying that at all. But it's a different relationship. They are wise. Some of them are. They are wise, but it's a different relationship there. And when I'm talking about wise women, I'm talking about the women that I would share deep things with, how I feel about things, be honest about, the shadow side of me that perhaps can be, I don't know, can be jealous. There's the side of me that can be, I don't know, envious, or angry, or whatever it is. I don't always show up in those spaces feeling like that. I can show up in those spaces feeling all manner of different things, and that's the point. I can share, who have I got, and that's what we're talking about, isn't it? Women mainly. I'm not saying men can't play this role, but I'm talking about women in my life, because I don't think I have any men who play this role for me. Would you say it's women for you as well?
It is women for me. My Uncle Ron was the exception to that, and he's now passed. So yeah, it's women for me, for sure.
So women who you can show up as you, however you're feeling in that moment, and can share whatever it is that you need to, get off your chest, that you need to talk through, that you need to just go, God, guess what I've done, or help, how am I going to get out of this, or whatever that is. There are very few women I could have the conversations like this, like we're having now, that I can have these conversations with. Yes. That's why you're definitely one of my wise crew.
Same, my friend, same.
Yeah.
It makes me think about accessing our inner wisdom too, because I know we're talking about like our wise women circles, but I also feel like we wouldn't be able to really connect with their wisdom if we didn't have access to our own. Like that, there's this symbiotic thing that happens, the mirroring, like you were talking about, right? Like we're not going to be able to see that reflection very well if we're not seeing it in ourselves also. And I wonder, what has the experience been like for you to kind of notice that inner wisdom, or was there a moment where you're like, oh, maybe I have gained some wisdom here? What's the journey look like for you?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I have definitely been one of those people throughout the whole of my life that people have always said, oh, she's got an old head on her shoulders. And I've often been the go-to for a lot of my friends to come and talk to about whatever's going on in their life, and they're like, oh, well, you'll get it, or you've been through so much, you'll be able to hear this, you'll be able to take it. So I don't think I ever really appreciated that had anything to do with inner wisdom. I think it's really interesting, because when I think back to younger me, I think I thought they were seeking solution. And I would always have something to say. I wouldn't say you must do this, but it would be very like, well, you could try this and you could try that. Or if that's not working, why are you doing it like that? Have you thought about this? Or whatever. I mean, those are very sort of generic sort of answers. But I would always have something to say. Or I think the other thing was, I could always listen without them feeling judged.
Yeah.
So I think that was a big thing. I was always very accepting, and I was always able to accept what they were talking about and see the struggle they were having with it, perhaps, rather than what was obvious was my judgment of what was going on. Yeah. So I think that, I mean, I'm thinking as I talk here, I think that was what was probably going on. Because when I did my counselling training, we always talked about the core conditions of person-centered counselling, which were always empathy, unconditional positive regard, and congruence. And unconditional positive regard, I don't really have a problem with. I do think people are kind of doing their best, and we get ourselves as people into all sorts of messes, but we just do. That's just part of being a human being. We're complex beings that have so much to think about. So I think I do have inner wisdom, going back to your question. And I think a lot of that is to do with how my life has panned out. I think I've experienced a lot. I've been through a lot. I've thrown myself wholeheartedly into life, even when I wasn't necessarily enjoying it or feeling like I wanted to be there. I was still doing it. And I'm not advocating that as a good way to live at all. But I think when I was going through, not when I was going through, when I came out of therapy, actually, so when I came out of therapy, that's when not long after I came out of therapy, that's when I discovered I was an HSP. And I think actually discovering I'm a highly sensitive person is what has really helped me understand my inner wisdom and helped me tune into it.
Yeah.
And so I don't think I've got that because I'm a highly sensitive person, because I think we've all got inner wisdom and inner intuition. I think as highly sensitive people, we have a closer relationship maybe with our intuition and a deeper relationship with it. But I think everyone can have a relationship with their intuition. And I think me connecting with mine was part of my journey to connect with who I really am, which for me all centered around discovering I was highly sensitive.
Yeah. Ooh, good stuff. I can relate to so much of what you were talking about. Like throughout my life, I was the person in the friend group that people would come to and say everything. And it took me a while to really realize that something different was going on, or that I was really doing anything for them. And I think the realization of that and the honing of that skill, the deep listening, the non-judgmental listening, and owning my intuition, my inner wisdom, like owning that, like really recognizing, oh, no, I do know things, and honoring that has helped me access it even more. Because I think, we're just walking through life doing our best. And I was doing that and not really understanding everything that was happening. And I think for a long time, when people would come to me, I think I felt like I needed to have a solution for them, kind of like something you mentioned before. And it wasn't until I really started thinking, oh, I don't need to have a solution for people. I can just be this safe place where they can talk through what's true for them. Once I kind of switched that, it just felt so yummy. Then it was like, okay, yes, come. Like I can hold this space for you. And I can ask questions that my intuition is leading me to ask. And I don't know, it felt yummy is the word that comes up. I don't know that I love that word, but that's the word that came up.
How old were you, or when in your life did you start to realize that?
I think it wasn't until my 40s that I really started going, I don't have to fix this for people. I don't have to be because I think what kept happening is I would have great ideas for people, I would, because as a highly sensitive person, I was in tune with them and be like, yeah, I think this would really be helpful, so I had lots of great ideas. So it was like reinforced a lot. But it was when I started really looking at owning my own inner wisdom, I thought, oh, I want that for people. So they don't need to come to me for answers. I want to help them find their own answers. That was just much yummier experience for me, because to the point that you said earlier, we all have inner wisdom. We have inner knowings. As HSPs, we have better access to that. But even then, like I kept overriding my inner knowing for a long time. And it was when I finally, in my late 40s, started going, okay, what if I just like really just owned this and went with it, that it really made a difference. And it feels, I'm having a hard time putting words around it, but it feels more whole. It feels better. It feels, yeah.
And it makes perfect sense. That's why you're such a great coach. Because you're not giving solutions, because I think a lot of people think coaching is about telling people what to do. So this is where you are, this is where you want to be, this is what you've got to do to get there. And there is some coaching that is like that for sure, but more and more coaching is, and certainly the way we coach, both of us, is not about a method of getting from A to B. It's much more about what is coming up in the moment, and creating a safe space for people to work out what they already know. And that's the beauty of it. And and as you said a little while ago and during the discussion, in order to be able to do that for other people, you've got to be able to do it for yourself. You've got to be able to tune into it yourself.
Yep. And trust it.
Yeah, because you're tuning into your intuition, which is telling you to, hang on a minute, just back off and just leave them to it, sort of thing.
Yep.
Not leave them to it, but no solution here.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And it's funny too. I had this one client, and she was always asking me for answers. Like she wanted me to tell her what to do. And so we were just constantly, and I said, I'm not going to do that. Like, what am I going to ask you? And she goes, you're going to ask me, what do I think? And I'm like, yeah, what is your wisdom telling you? And it was like, so we'd go round and round and round with that. She kept coming back because I think it is one of the things she wanted to know for herself is, if she got frustrated with me, we wouldn't have worked together anymore, but it was like, I'm not going to be the coach that says you need to go do this. Yeah. Now, I will sometimes say something's coming up for me, but see how it feels for you. And that's always how I couch it, because I always want people to check into their own truth and their own wisdom. Yeah. We're talking about here, wisdom. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Exactly. And as you're talking, I wish I could, I think Rogers, who is sort of, one of the main books that counselors will read about person-centered counseling. And I can't remember which book it's in, but I'm pretty sure it was in one of his books. There's this paragraph that describes somebody who is in in the middle of torment, really, and in the middle of their therapy. But what they can hear, what it feels like they can hear, is a knocking, as though they are trapped in. It's like they're almost, the way I would read it now, I think, would be like their soul is trapped in a prison cell somewhere, and they can hear a little knocking, and just a little tap, tap, tap at first, and then it gets louder, and they realize that they're not alone, that somebody is there tapping, and somebody, and if they tap, actually, this is me making this bit up, this is not what this is about, but if they tap, somebody else would listen, and they realize they're not alone. But that tapping, actually, of course, is their inner wisdom.
Yeah. Ooh, and that gave me chills.
Yeah. And I think, now I'm going to get quite emotional. I think when I went through my therapy, which I needed to do, I needed to sort of lay all the past out and sort of look at it and feel it, and then put it all to bed by writing my book and writing it all down. And then it was post all that I discovered I was a highly sensitive person. And it feels like that bit in me that was inside that had been tapping all this time was like, thank fuck, she's finally heard me.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we like an occasional swear on this podcast, but just that, oh, thank bless she's heard this at last. You know,
Yes.
whatever part of me it is that's doing that, and you know, I usually talk about it as my, you know, my inner child is just like, oh, thank God. Thank God, can we just now get on and live? And that definitely feels like that's what's happened for me.
100%. Oh, I love that so much. As you were talking, I was really struck again by systems, which you've already mentioned a little bit. But it's like, I think about as children, for a lot of us, most of us, I know for me, I wasn't taught to check in with myself, right? It was like whatever my parents were telling me. And then in the organized religion, it was whatever the priest was, well, we had a pastor, whatever the pastor was saying, whatever the Bible says, whatever God says, which is still all these things outside of me.
Yeah.
In school, it was what the teacher says. In work, it's what the boss says. Like there was all of these things that are telling you constantly to look outside of yourself for direction. And it's, I think, so important to be able to teach ourselves and teach our kids, if we have access to kids, how to trust our own knowing, our own wisdom. Because, like you said, there's that part that's tapping. It's like, oh, God, finally she heard me, right? And it's, I think we don't practice it until, for many of us, like we're in 40s and 50s when other things have happened.
Yeah.
And then we're like, okay, what is going on here? But I just imagine a world where from a young age, we know how to trust our own inner knowing.
And
it's exciting to me.
It is exciting. And I think even if, I mean, I don't know what I would have been like if I'd been told to trust that inner knowing, or learned to, or been shown how to trust that inner knowing when I was in my 20s. I mean, God knows, who knows? But even if I was just aware that it was there, and even if I went against it a few times, I would have learned a lot quicker.
Yeah.
You know, I changed jobs so often, thinking that it was just the job that was wrong, and I'd find this, you know, happiness I'm looking for in another job somewhere. And guess what? It was never the job. It was never the job. It was like, wherever I went, that feeling was with me. And it's like, God, another job. No, Philippa, it's you. It's in you. You need to listen to what's going on in you. I needed to listen to that tapping, you know, that I didn't even hear the faintest little tap. Didn't hear any of it. I was too busy trying to shut it all out, really.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Surviving.
Yeah. Absolutely. So I definitely listened when I was ready.
Yeah. Which is true for all of us, you know.
Yeah. But I do think I do feel in my inner wise self tells me that had I been aware of it earlier, I would have actually listened earlier. So, but you know, it doesn't matter, because I can't go back and change the past. It is what it is. Right. But part of us having these conversations is to, maybe if anyone's listening and they're, you know, they can hear a bit of tapping and they're like, oh, well, you know, listen to it, you know. Because it's trying to tell you something when we can't tell you what it's trying to tell you. Only you can work that out. But yeah, listen to it, because it's tapping away for a reason.
You know, it's interesting. And I think I've shared it on this pod probably more than once, but I was aware that I had intuition. So it's like I had that awareness, but I didn't fully trust it, because the amount of times I said I should have trusted my gut, because I'd had a knowing, but then my brain talked me into something else, like over and over and over, like for years, Philippa. So I'm like, well, shoot, I did know, but I still, you know, wasn't ready to act on it, because trusting it was a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of unlearning all the external, the things outside of me that were saying I should do, and saying it doesn't matter what those outside, like what is going on inside, because it has never steered me wrong. Like I've never said, "Oh, I shouldn't have trusted my gut." Like,
no, we don't say that, do we?
uh-uh.
No, you're right. Yeah, you're right. I think you talk about your brain logicking you out of it.
It did. Logicked me right out of it.
Logic you right out of it. And you know, we're not taught, society doesn't tell us that intuition is important, that, you know, logic is what is revered, you know.
Yes.
And so it's no surprise that we don't learn to trust it until we're a bit older, when we've had that experience so many times of going against it and thinking, oh God, I knew I shouldn't have done it like that. I knew. Why did I still do it? Or whatever form that takes for you. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? But when you kind of get there, you know, don't you?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I'm still learning to live a life following my intuition, but I'm getting there. A lot of the things, especially the things I do in my business, are very much what feels right. And if something feels right, I'll go for it. And if it doesn't, I'll think, well, maybe not yet. And it might not be a complete no, but maybe it's just a no for now. And I've found the more I follow what feels right rather than what I feel I should be doing, the better the results.
Oh my gosh, it's 100% been my truth as well. And man, having your own business, it has opportunity to face your gremlins for sure.
Yep.
And this process, exactly what we're talking about, which is trusting your own wisdom versus the shoulds on the outside. I mean, for me, that comes in the form of marketing, like just the big M marketing. I have signed up for so many classes and looked at so many ways, and the way that I always have results is when I just listen to my inner voice. And it's usually some small step that I'm like, I should just do that and be like, yeah, that feels good. And then boom, you know, it, yeah, I mean, it's a little bit of a here's another overused word, journey. It's a journey, right? To unlearn the external stuff and the societal pressure and the, oh my gosh, everyone else is doing it, and the comparison and the perfectionism and the people pleasing and all the things.
All the things.
And then say, okay, well, I'm going to take a leap of faith and trust this voice on the inside, even though my brain says it's stupid or weird, because when I've trusted it in the past, it's been really great. You know, it's just that that remembering and that doing. And then the more I can point to it and say, wait, no, I did do that, and look what happened, then it's easier to say, to do it the next time. It's easier to say yes and to quiet the brain voices that are like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But man, it's a process and a journey for sure.
It really is. And those brain voices that you're talking about are often things along the lines of, what are other people going to think?
100%.
Yeah. And that is a real, it can be quite a battle to push through the noises, that the voices that say, don't do this. I don't know, such a body's not going to like it. Such a body, what's somebody else going to say about it? And those voices can be really loud, which can make trusting your intuition and just doing it all that much harder. And which is why, gosh, if anybody's not listening to their intuition, or is going, oh yeah, I wish I'd listened to my intuition, we do it all the time, and we do it for very good reasons, and it would just make you, you're definitely not alone.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. And I'd say start with little things about trusting your intuition, if you can listen. And sometimes that can be as easy as what do you want for dinner? You know, and what's your body telling you? And actually listening to our bodies and what our body wants is a whole other subject. I mean, we talked quite a lot about that in the bodies episode, but I don't think we talked about it in quite the same way that we're talking now. But, you know, are you listening to the messages that your body's telling you about what it wants, what it needs? Does it need more water? Does it need, I don't know, does it
rest?
Need all sorts. Yeah, does it need rest? I was talking about food really, but yes, does it need rest? What does your body need? And you know, maybe it's just thirsty, you know, whatever. Whatever. Those are, I wish I could have come up with some better examples there off the top of my head. But you know, is that somewhere where you can start tuning in a little bit? Because the more that you can try and listen and act upon it and get the evidence that following your intuition is the right thing, first of all, that helps you tune in more to your intuition, and you'll be more in tune with it, so you'll be able to sort of listen, hear, respect it more. And also the more evidence you have to keep those voices in your head at bay, because you can go, look, it's okay, I know we've got this, we've done this before. That protective voice that is actually telling you, oh, don't do that, you go, it's okay, we've done this before, I don't need you to protect me in this situation. So just doing little steps and building those up works on so many levels.
100%.
Yeah I found that to be really helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So may I just share with you what I started off by saying about this? So I was doing some wonderful energy work with a wonderful woman that I know. She asked me if I would be interested in doing some work with her while she worked out quite what she was doing. So I said, yeah, jumped at the chance. And what very much came out of those sessions that I spent with her, it was very much about tuning into my intuition and realizing that, you know, I have all the answers inside, and that actually I am quite wise. That's why I'm able to have this conversation with you today. Actually, as a result of that work, I can own that. I am quite wise. I do have some wisdom to share, and I have the courage now to be able to say that.
Beautiful.
Thank you. What she also helped me do, she helped me with a grounding exercise, was that when I need it, I mean, I'm not going to be able to do it now straight away, and anybody listening is not going to be able to tune into it straight away, because we built up that relationship and I was in a great place to be able to do this visualization. But she helped me see that in the moments that I need real grounding, I can tune into a place that I can see, that I can be, that I can visualize myself walking into. Mine was sort of like a cave, but it can be any place that you choose to. In there is a group, there are 6 or 7 women sitting in a circle around. There's probably a fire in the middle. There was certainly for mine, and they were all sitting there, and there was a space waiting for me, and they were welcoming me in. And I got to go and sit in that place, in that space, and just be in the energy of all these wonderful, wise women. I didn't know who they were. They didn't have faces of people I recognized. I just knew that those women were there for me, and I was there for them, and we were all there together, basking in this wonderful energy. And it was a really really amazing visualization, and really, I have used it a few times actually to help me just go, it's okay, I got this.
Oh, I got full body chills. I was there with you in the visualization. Yes. That's yummy. That's lovely. Yes.
Yeah. And that really was the culmination, I think, of it was the culmination of the work I did with this fantastic woman. And she's one of the circle. You're one of my circle in there. Although it's not like your face, but I know one of them is you.
I get it. Yeah.
And it was definitely a real moment for me of stepping into, oh God, maybe this is where it all came from. Stepping into another version of me that is wise and owns it and is bolder and is more courageous. Gosh, that is where the new me has all come from. Because I do feel like I've stepped into a different version of myself in the last couple of months. And I think now I'm realizing that's probably where it's come from. I must go off and tell her that I've had this realization today. But
beautiful.
Yeah. And I just think, as women, I think we have a hard time at times. We're told we can have everything, and we know we can't have everything because there's always a compromise. And every corner there are obstacles. Every corner we turn, there are obstacles in our way. And I just think we're bloody wonderful and marvelous. And I really wanted this actually to be a celebration of how wonderful women are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oof. Yes, you're right. We are. We're fucking amazing.
We are. Glad you've sworn as well. That means that's one each.
Yeah. It's true though. And you think about like in the times when as humans we lived in tribes, like we had easier access to our wise women, right? As part of our community. And now the way we live with things being fractured, it's often hard to have access to that unless we are on purpose creating that for ourselves. And I think it's really needed to connect with wise women, like we were talking about, to have that unconditional love and support, and to also be the wise woman.
Yeah.
Right? And because the recognition of, oh, I do have wisdom to share. There's something transformative about that. At least it was for me.
Yeah.
It's like,
me too.
Oh yeah, I do have something here. Yeah. It was one of the like when you invited me to be on a podcast with you, that was one of the things that I had to wrestle with was, what do I have to say to and what gives, who's going to listen to me and why should I have a voice? And it was really owning well, because I'm here and I have lived experience and I have my wisdom that I've collected. That's what I have to share. I'm not going to pretend to be somebody I'm not. I'm not some superhuman on the mountain or whatever, but I'm a woman who's lived in this world and I have experiences and I have wisdom, and I will offer anything of it that would be helpful to people. Like I want to help. That's all I want to do. But owning that was really an important piece for me.
Yeah. And I've got goosebumps now. Now, how does that feel, owning that?
I mean, it feels amazing. Yeah.
And I invited you because because of what I saw all that.
Mm-hmm. And this is a perfect example of the mirror, right? It's like you saw it in me, which helped me see it in me, which helps me then hopefully mirror back to you. Because I was just like, oh my gosh, if this amazing woman is asking me to do something with her, like that meant something to me. Because I think you're bloody brilliant. Like you're...
Oh, this is turning into quite a...
I was just going to say, let's pause while we just give each other compliments back and forth. But I do mean it.
But actually, how nice is it to hear two women like really complimenting each other and being amazing? Because that's well, I mean, it's not as rare as it used to be, but certainly not that long ago, it would be more like, well, we can't both be great. So one of us has got to be greater than the other. And let's try and sort of step over each other or whatever. But, we know that this works really well with us together. Yes. We were just talking before we started recording how we wouldn't want to be doing this on our own. It's doing it together that makes this fun, makes it what it is.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree.
Yeah.
Me too. I'm really grateful that you're one of the wise women in my life. Thank you, my friend.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're sitting around my fire. Yeah.
I'm going to take that. I'm borrowing that visual. I think that's amazing.
I feel like I should know it better. It's actually quite useful. I think it's really, yeah. Mm-hmm. I think, is there anything else you want to say?
No, I think we've brought it back to the beginning.
I think we have brought it back to the beginning. And it was a little bit indulgent, I suppose, self-indulgent, this episode. But, I hope people listening have found it interesting, useful, helpful. We've enjoyed recording it. Well, I have. I'm sure you have as well. And I've got something out of it. And if it was a little bit self-indulgent, well, so be it.
Well, then I hope it gives other people permission to be equally self-indulgent.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And bask in your wisdom and your connection with self and just how wonderful you are.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Shall we end it there?
Yeah. On that note, it's bye from me.
And it's bye from me. Thanks for listening to HSP Connection. If you've enjoyed it, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. Also, we'd really appreciate it if you could rate the podcast and share it with anyone you think might be interested. It helps others find us. If you listen on Apple Podcasts, you can also leave us a review.
To get in touch with us, you can email us at hspconnectionpodcast@gmail.com. And we'd love to hear from you with your thoughts and comments on the episodes and any suggestions you have for future topics and guests.
We are both HSP coaches and speakers. And to find out more about Robbie, go to Robbie Lee, that's leigh.com.
And to find out more about Philippa, go to safeandsupported.co.uk. See you next time.